Hello and welcome. Today in studio we have Waldo Alexander, a professional musician, a session musician, and a violinist for ALBINOBEACH. Thanks so much for joining us, man.
It's great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Well, I started playing the violin when I was about 6.5 years old, so it's quite young. I can't remember the exact reason. All I know is that this story that my mom tells is that we were in Stuttgart walking through the street, and apparently I saw a little girl carrying a violin case, and I said I really wanted to play. And well, now 31 years later, here I am, and I'm still doing it. So. As a session musician, I would say probably, it's a bit difficult to tell, I would say probably about between 16 and 18 years. Already started sessioning when I was at university. Yeah. I think I was quite lucky in a sense because being at university and also being a string player, often we were roped in as students and as a larger group of players, because you're string players, to go into the studio by our teachers, people who had connections. So my entrance into the session scene was quite simple in that regard. I had quite a lot of help in that sense because of various teachers and the connections that you'd already made while you were at university. That's a very good question, and there's so many differences. Studio work, obviously there's very little room for error. Live performance, I don't really want to call them mistakes, but let's call them mistakes for now. Any errors that occur, they're just part of the natural performance. To have a flawless performance, I think can be quite sterile, but in terms of a live performance. But in a studio situation, generally the requirement is that you are note perfect, both in terms of intonation and of course in terms of rhythm. Yeah. Well, I think the simple answer really would be concentration and focus. You have to be prepared to be in that environment in terms of be in the correct mindset. Being in a studio is not the same as being on stage, where you're able to let go and you've got a whole lot more freedom. The studio, you're there to perform a very, very specific task. The client is paying you to deliver, and of course what's always at the back of everybody's mind is that you are in the studio, and studios are expensive environments to be in. So you have 3 hours to do X amount of tracking, and you have to try and be done by then. It's very difficult to give advice on that front, but like I said, you really just have to concentrate and be very, very focused, and be comfortable with your instrument, whatever it may be. Do whatever preparation you feel needs to be done beforehand. There's never anything wrong with calling up the client beforehand and saying, if you have charts for me, I'd like to do some preparation, and you do a couple of hours of extra work at home, so that once you get into the studio you can deliver the best performance possible. Because it's also not just about the client, it's also about your own satisfaction too. Because once those tracks are recorded, that's it, they're there. And if you're not happy with them, they're there for all eternity. Look, I don't think there really is a set handbook in terms of what level of skill you need to be at. The simple things: know your instrument well. You need to, good intonation, good rhythm. You do need to know how to read music. You can't get away without being able to reading music or chord charts, whatever it may be. There are very few studio situations where you'll find yourself in a free improvisatory environment. I think that is number one. Look, you need to also have been playing your instrument for a number of years. You need to be solid on stage. You know, you need your reading skills need to be outstanding. I think in order to enhance yourself as a session musician, there's several things that you can focus on. Number one is your sight reading needs to be very, very good. So that means taking out music charts at home of as many different styles of music as possible and just challenging yourself to read through them, because often you don't know what you're going to be confronted with when you arrive in the studio. You get a phone call saying, are you available on this date at such and such a time? And you say yes, and you might be confronted with some really hair-raising parts. So again, like I said in the previous answer, you need to be very, very comfortable with yourself and your instrument and in the correct mindset. And in order to be there, your sight reading needs to be exceptional. You need to, of course, you need a good ear. You need a good, solid understanding of arrangement so that you can anticipate what's going to be coming next. Because whenever you're surprised in the studio, that's then when the mistakes happen, and you have to stop and start again. So it's again part of the saving time in the studio. You're talking about seconds, but seconds add up very, very quickly within a 3-hour session. It's a difficult question and a difficult environment to just break into. I think to make the decision to simply be a session player is not really, I don't know whether it's really possible, because I mean, I can only really speak for myself. Other people might have had different experiences, but again, the way that I entered into the session realm was during the time that I was at university studying. So I had an in through my professors and through various colleagues that I already had. I think that is pretty much the principal way of entering into a studio or a session environment. Is you need a connection. You need somebody to endorse your abilities, and give you one opportunity, and hopefully that first opportunity you have, you will perform, and you know, once your foot is in the door, it's there. It's up to you to make sure that you maintain your chops and you know, your abilities as a musician from that point on. Yes and no. I think it depends entirely on, well, it depends on many things actually. Depends on the caliber of musician that you are. Depends on what music is wanting to be recorded. I think there are many opportunities certainly for jazz. The Afrikaans session industry is very, very big, and you know, obviously there's quite a bit of advert work, but that normally involves a very small amount of people. You know, the idea of sessioning for, you know, sort of better known artists, you know, those opportunities are quite rare. There's certainly, I'm busy enough in terms of my session work as a freelancer. I would say on average through the year I probably have about, it's difficult, can go up to about 60 sessions a year, which is quite a lot. One would of course always want to be in the studio every single day, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, no, this is a very, very grey area because you know, the industry isn't unionized, so there aren't any specific industry standards in terms of payments. There are you know, people have come up with slightly random figures. I think often it depends on the individual, on both the client and the artist. I have my own rates depending on the situation as well. If I go into a studio with a full string section, generally, you know, the rates are set by the client. You're looking, can I give amounts? Ooh. Yeah. You know, you're looking probably at about somewhere between 1,200 and maximum 1,500 per 3-hour session. For myself, as an individual, there are quite a few situations where I will go in with my own violin, a viola, my electric violin with an octave pedal, and I will on the spot compose tracks, you know, to create a fake full string section in a way which is possible to do in a studio. For that, I of course charge a whole lot more. You know, you're looking at about 2.5, 3 per 3-hour session, because that involves arrangement. It's not just playing music off a page, because generally in those situations there is no printed music, nothing's been written. The client or the artist will have possibly an idea of what they would like, and it's up to me to, in 3 hours, write a full string section and, you know, perform and record it, you know, for 3 tracks. So I think that in that case you're entitled to charge a whole lot more. And also bear in mind that the client is saving a whole lot of money on arrangement fees, because that's also where things become very, very pricey. Well, most of the band members I've known for a number of years. They're pals of mine, and they've been pestering me for a while to come and join them. With various other commitments that I had, it became a bit difficult. I had one rehearsal with them last year, but I've only really been playing with them properly since February this year. They were very, very enthusiastic about having me on board, and I of course jumped at the opportunity because it gives me a chance to further my improv skills and develop my ear, to continue developing my ear, plus to play with all of my pedals and my electric violin. So it was a no-brainer. I had to say yes. You know, they're all such accomplished musicians. The wonderful thing about them is that they are not full-time musicians. They're not hampered by I don't know whether I should actually say this. They're not hindered by formal training, really, which provides you with a totally different level of freedom within the music. And I, of course, just had to be a part of that, and it's a real privilege to be playing with them. Well, my role is still being developed. You know, there's certain elements that have become a little more concrete. You know, bear in mind, there's only a certain amount of rehearsals and gigs that I've played with these guys. Thankfully, there is a lot of space and freedom within the music. My role really is, in a nutshell, it's more to add texture, and of course, you know, occasionally there's a spot where it's my time to shine, you know. But it is a very, very dense musical environment to be in, so you have to be very sensitive to what's going on around you. You know, the lead instruments in that group essentially are the guitars and the bass. They feature heaviest, and my role, I really think, is to contribute the best textures and colors that I possibly can to enhance what the rest of the guys are doing. You know, you're playing in a group of people. It's never really about you as an individual. It's about the collective effort. You know, generally, and I'm just going by the few press releases that we've had, generally it's referred to as as progressive and acid rock. But if you would want to define the genre, you would need somebody with a little more knowledge of that kind of music. You know, I'm a contributor, and I don't really, you know, when I'm in those kinds of situations as a musician, I'm not really too fussed about what the particular, how you categorize this music. For me, it's really about how do I just do the best job possible. For the band, I think it was fantastic. I mean, I was thrilled with the performance. I thought that was the best I had ever played with Albino Beach. That's just for me personally, and the rest of the guys were also very, very happy. I mean, the sound on the stage was fantastic, and there was just a great energy both on stage and from the audience. And you know, when you've got those two things, something generally just clicks, and you latch onto one another, and you let go and you just go for it. And that's what happened, and it was a super slick performance. Look, okay, obviously, you know, the sort of the headmaster style stuff. Practice your instrument, you know. Challenge yourself, be adventurous. Don't limit yourself to just one style of music. I mean, obviously, if you are focusing as a performer on one particular style, great. You know, if it's working for you, fantastic. But you know, there is a whole wealth of music and musical styles out there, and they're there to be explored. You know, nobody should deter you from being curious. So be curious, be adventurous, and be confident. And also, once you have a foot in the door and you feel comfortable, don't lower your standards. Don't allow people to push you around, because there's a lot of that going on. In terms of just, you know, simple treatment and of course fees. We're musicians, we're freelancers. In part, we're all about money. Yeah, and you know, never lose sight of the main goal. It's never really just about you. It's always about the music first and foremost. That is the most important thing. If they want to book me for a session, they can either call me or email me, or you can find me on Facebook. Well, Facebook is Waldo Luc Alexander. It's L-U-C. You're welcome to send me a message there. My email address is wherebwaldo@gmail.com. It's just the letter B, not a B-E. My phone number is 082-487-6481.
Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in, and a special thanks to Waldo for taking the time to be here today. We hope you found this useful if you're considering session work, and until next time, be awesome and keep supporting local music.